Hello, hello.
And we're back.
We're back. Another Friday night, another winging it. We're not going.
Our first winging in 2021.
That's right, 2021. Yeah, and we're not going too far afield. Mark Adair is Toronto-based, I believe. I believe he's still in Toronto. I guess we'll find out. But I know him from Loop Gallery. Back in the day. We didn't show together, but saw his work. We saw each other's work, and we were both on the executive for a few years. So worked together to keep Loop running.
That's right, and it sounds like we're heading into the dark side of Toronto tonight. It's not Toronto the good anymore. Death is taking a holiday.
Death is taking a holiday.
Like that.
Death does a lot of things. Death is doing it. He's having a drink. He's doing a lot of things. One of the things we'll talk about is his drawing series, which has been going on for over 20 years, featuring death. And death gets a job. Death goes on vacation. Death gets married. Death has kids. And I love these drawings. And they're really small. They're 2 by 4 inches or 4 by 4 inches, and they're incredibly detailed. And I want to ask him about his technique, because he does use charcoal.
Yeah.
And the work is exquisite. I guess he also has done a lot of sculpture and installation.
Yes, a lot of different media. So
media and
all together,
and always very skillful. The sculpture is really nicely carved.
Mm-hmm.
We're just waiting for Mark to come on online, and we will chat with him.
Here he is.
All right, we're waiting for audio.
Howdy.
Right.
Hello.
All right. Welcome.
Hey, Mark, nice to meet you.
Welcome to Winging It. Mark Adair and Mark Cohen. It's going to be a confusing night. And I love, there's your Leslie Spit painting behind.
It is indeed.
Awesome. I love
Beautiful.
it.
Thought it'd be better than looking at The Office.
All right. So we've... I was just saying, I know you from Loop Gallery. We didn't do shows together, but we're on the executive together, and saw a lot of your work there. And but you've been working for not quite 40 years, but a while, right? Making art, and so I've spent a lot of time this week on your website looking at everything. And I think the thing that struck me is there's an incredible consistency in theme and quality, like skill, it's your work. I think the things that came to mind is that they're narrative, and they're really finely, whether they're carved or created out of other material or drawn, they're all really exquisitely done. How do you do it? I was just telling Mark, I want your drawings.
We want to know more about your technique.
So those ones the series, the Death Drinks, I guess, is that the sort of the name of the whole series?
Yeah.
And is it about 20 years you've been working on those?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it always blew my mind. I had imagined them quite large, and then when I saw the dimensions, either they're 2 by 4 inches or 4 by 4 inches, I was like, holy fuck, how does he do this? So maybe that's the lead-in. How do you do it? How do you do what you do?
Paul, and secondly, what kind of tiny tools are you using for these lovely miniatures?
So Mark, what was the first question again?
What was my first question? Well, initially I said, do you use a magnifying glass when you work with it? But what tiny tools do you use? And yes, how do you work at that level? those dimensions.
You know, so much of the earlier work is huge. And
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, installations.
yeah, it takes up so much storage space.
Right.
So when the opportunity came to work really small, it was appealing
Hmm.
For sure.
and easy to store. And I don't know if I was thinking about a book. I might have been thinking about medieval miniatures.
Yes, yeah.
And they had an obsession with storage and transportability.
Right.
Also, there was a gallery down London, Ontario. Remember, I think it was Michael Gibson. He had
Okay.
an annual or a biannual miniature show.
Okay.
And I thought I would do some for him. And before I got these done, he stopped doing it.
Nice.
But by then I was addicted. But the answer to the question about how I do them, the way I do charcoal is I buy the general charcoal pencils. I use a belt sander.
Okay.
And I turn the pencil as the belt comes towards me. It has to be needle sharp.
Yeah.
And I do work with a lens. You know, when I first started doing them in whatever, my eyes were good enough I didn't need,
Right.
right? But now I use one of those big lenses with a light inside.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, to be young again, right? Where you can
Oh, to be young again.
um,
And now, because of COVID, I can't get the pencils.
oh no.
Oh, right.
So fortunately for me, I've saved all my little stubs. So this morning I was cutting like surgical hose to fit onto the end of the stub to lengthen it so it'll rest in the crutch of my finger.
Yeah.
And also, so I've got something to hang on to when I'm putting it on the belt sander.
You don't want your fingers.
No,
on
you
the belt
don't.
sander. Yeah.
So that's where all that comes from.
I'm sure you could order those pencils online.
Yeah.
I want to use the stubs.
You want to use them anyway. Yeah.
I have this many of them.
The stubs are miniature pencils.
Pencils, I guess so, right?
I can fully appreciate the need for precision. This is a micron, and I don't know if you can tell because
I can tell.
003. That's the small. That is the slimmest nib I've been able to find to date. And if I can find smaller, I will. If you know of any, let me know later. But
so this is what you use for the hypnagogia things.
Yes, exactly. Well,
yeah, and other things, yeah. And I mean, when I need to go really, really tiny, 005 isn't small enough.
Yeah, Mark does a lot of
well.
his own drawings and graphic novels and stuff.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot. It's all pen and ink drawings lately, and now graphite. And that's the other thing is, yeah, talk about nibs. Do I have any of my nibs here? No. Well, this one here was double the length about 3 weeks ago. So
okay,
I'm just going through it through my pencils very quickly, and it's driving me nuts. So I like your suggestion about about how to sharpen them.
The thing about the charcoal is it'll get you a black.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
and
so you don't use you don't use the compressed squares of black charcoal.
On my bigger charcoals, I'll use anything. The pine charcoal.
On the bigger ones, yeah.
Yeah, and the only thing that you can use these charcoal pencils on that'll get you the black is the Arches 140 hot press.
Yeah, you need to have a lot of tooth.
It has very little tooth. It's the
it's
opposite.
Little tooth. Oh, I find I work on an Italian paper. I think it's Fabriano or whatever, and it's got no tooth, and I couldn't get it there. But I found that once I sprayed fixative, then I could do layers and layers of the black.
Right.
I use the willow, the willow sticks as opposed to compressed. Yeah.
I tried many different papers. The only one I could get to work, anything that's got any tooth will break the tip off the charcoal.
Okay, because you're using.
Because it has no strength.
And you got the super fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I only get about 1/4 of an inch per sharpening of the tip,
Jeez, eh?
right?
Yeah.
After that, I can do something else if I want, you know, to get some
Right,
grade
right,
in
but
there.
you can't do those fine ones.
Yeah, but if I wanted to draw like Mark's glasses, I get like a
Yeah.
1/4 inch, and I got to put it down and take a new one.
Now the theme, so we're covering the sort of technique, but you mentioned the medieval, miniature books, because it really feels like that.
Yeah.
Mark and I were talking earlier, like there's a certain quality of medieval
late medieval
art, or even like some of that, some of that kind of folk art, this narrative that's, really well done. And so curious, I love the themes. They
we
just
should be
really
very blatant right now and just say we're talking about death, people.
Yeah. Well, so I just want to say, so I wanted to, that was our lead in is why do you make art about death?
Oh man,
this is a big one.
The person is the question, why not make art about that? But yes,
no, I would rather not maybe have, but we're all 20th century boys.
Yeah.
And the 20th century was awful, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
Really.
I mean, this
Pile
one
on
could be
the
worse.
destruction, eh?
This
Pile
wasn't
on the
doing so well either at the moment.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know if it was worse in any other century, but there was a lot more of it. You know what I mean? Like, there were more war, more stuff happening, in a shorter period of time.
I guess I had a show here in town, and I was asked to talk about this, and I'd been down to St. Louis, Missouri. They have an art museum there that's absolutely fantastic. It's surprising because you wouldn't think that they would have that work there.
Right.
I was looking at these paintings by these German kind of landscape painters from the 1840s in the American West, and the painting was fantastic. And you go from there to like Otto Dix, and you go, how did we get from that level of sophistication, achievement, elegance, all those things to Otto Dix? So I think one of the mysterious things about the 20th century is the 19th century. 19th century in many places was pretty cool. And that 1914, of course, things started to slide, and we're not able to turn that around. So what was that about the 20th century? Why couldn't we? Other centuries, as you say, have had lots of warfare, but other centuries have had lots of peace too. So Northern Europe just went crazy.
Yes, yeah, in the 20th century. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And they didn't need to.
No.
They had prosperity. They weren't starving. They didn't have, raving, hooligans coming in from, so for me, that was it. It was like, what is it about the 20th century that caused it to go crazy when it didn't start crazy?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so your work, like some of those early ones, some of the early paintings are about the harvest, and there's a certain reflection maybe on agrarian communities, and then you see the buildings coming in. And
Yeah. So I mean, so then I went, well, And I don't, because it's so long ago, I was thinking today, well, what was the actual order of my thinking? And I can't really remember. I can remember the physical practices of the materials, the manipulation of the materials, like I was doing it this morning.
Right.
But the ideas I can't quite place. I can't place them in 83 or 86. At some point I thought, well, the medieval period is sort of interesting because it's famous for its spirituality, or at least some people had that. The rich, maybe, doesn't matter.
Mark's a scholar in medieval studies,
all that.
so he knows. You can tell us more, maybe more details.
Yeah, but you know, the other thing about that I found really fascinating with the medieval period is that there are, in Northern European art, there's real traces of a pre-Christian tradition.
Yes, yeah.
So I was kind of like thinking, well, I'm kind of an Irish guy by descent. So I that has to be the thing I talk about. I can't talk about Africa.
They're talking about like Celtic and pagan and.
Well, not just that, you know, like all up there through Latvia, and like all that stuff bled into the Christian art.
Yeah.
But I started looking at that period as like, well, what kind of a benign influence did that pre-Christian sort of nature worship art have? And then I did really get into the medieval period also. Like Fra Angelico.
For sure.
Angelico, he's a huge influence.
Right.
Should be for anybody who does narrative.
Yeah. Still a bit flat.
Very flat.
Yeah.
Very flat. But that was all deliberate.
Bruegel as well. I mean, I know we're out of it.
Yeah, Bruegel and Bosch. I mean, those guys, of course.
Some Bruegel in there.
Oh, they're fabulous.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you can't beat it.
Yeah.
And
then you got people like, I don't know, you say the name Cranach.
Yeah, those guys, yeah.
Oh, man. Those Netherlands painters, right? Bosch, and Cranach, just all that stuff. It's all that stuff. You know, you see that influence in your work.
Yeah.
What about contemporary? Like I also, when I was looking at that series today, I was thinking of Sue Coe. From the 80s, her figurative work. I don't know if that has any.
Who?
Sue Coe. You know Sue Coe? She was really hot in the 80s.
I know the work. No, none.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not on purpose. It's just a similarity, just because she uses charcoal and deals with death and stuff sometimes. She dealt a lot with like animal slaughter and stuff, and was very social political stuff.
My strategy when I was young was to isolate myself from my contemporaries.
I was going to say that, like I'm looking at your work going back to, say, I guess 83, 84. And I know I was just kind of, maturing as an artist, and I was very influenced by all the stuff that was happening with the figurative neo-expressionists and big sloppy paintings. But I look at your work, and it's very, very much concerned with like, skill and craftsmanship, and a little smaller. So I don't know, was that part of that, like just resisting the trends? Like, I don't know if you were in Toronto at the time, but it would have been the chromosome people and the.
Well, yeah, I knew about that stuff, and I really felt at that stage, so I guess I would have been not quite 30. So I'd gone out to BC to do grad work, and that was a hard time for me. I was trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do, and I wasn't having an easy time of it. And I came back, and by then I had sort of been pointed in the right direction. So did you see that Toronto bank robbery piece?
Yes,
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because that's sculpted, correct?
That's carved black walnut.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really remarkable. The carving is so exquisite, and it's a wonderful piece of sculpture. Though I have to say, with my myopia, it's hard for me to exactly see what's going on in there because the images on the screen are a bit small. Could you kind of tell us what's going on?
Well, there's you can see the medieval influences.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Like
But that the actual story was there'd been a bank robbery in Toronto.
Okay.
And I'd heard it on the radio, the car radio or the studio radio.
Right.
And it was a real extended narrative. There'd been a bank robbery, and then these guys, they pistol whipped the tellers.
So these were like a bank robbery in the 80s or whatever.
Yeah.
You're not talking about
1982.
like the 90, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the 82 or 83. It was out in the
Okay.
East End, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I don't think the police got involved because they couldn't catch these guys, but a posse of people who maybe knew the tellers, they did get involved.
Wow.
And they pursued these guys, and there were shootouts.
No way.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a real story.
Wild West thing right here.
Wild
in Toronto.
West, yeah.
Wild West. So, but you know, I came back to Toronto and I wanted to work on this medieval stuff, and Chromosome was going on, and I was going, well, Toronto's such a competitive town, and you know, these days we use this phrase, capturing the narrative. Like that whole painting thing had captured the narrative.
Absolutely.
And I thought, well, I can't get into that and try to figure this project out that I'm on. So I got a studio out of Warden and Eglinton by Metro East Detention.
Okay.
In an old munitions factory. Like I was as far away as I could get.
Yeah, really. Everybody was going down to Queen West.
That's right. I never
Yeah,
went
yeah.
down there. I was just trying to think, okay, Mark, you gotta, you know.
Interesting.
So I had that studio for 2 or 3 years. I did Toronto Bank Robbery, then I did The Big Fresco and Chicken Choker.
Chicken Choker, yeah.
All out there in complete isolation. Now I had friends,
Sure.
but for me it was like, no,
That's
no, that's
interesting.
not
Yeah,
where I
yeah,
want to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Which shows in your work, right? It's a very idiosyncratic. It's unique, especially, you know, I mean, so many of us got into whatever, Julian Schnabel or, you know, whatever, Andy Fabo or whatever was happening in, you know, I guess around the mid 80s was the Young Romantics from Vancouver.
That's it.
With Attila Lukács and you know, people like that. I was really big into that. And, you know, I admit did a lot of really bad sloppy painting because of that.
Well, that was it was a pretty exciting time to look at art.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And it was big, it was sloppy, and you kind of had it was carte blanche, really.
There was a bit of a comeback at that point too, right? Art was kind of it kind of, I don't know if this is absolutely true, but there was a sense in the 70s that art had kind of run its course. There wasn't really anything else to say, certainly in terms of painting and so forth. In the 80s, painting came back, and it came back big and huge.
And figures and narrative and stuff.
Figurative and narrative and all these things that had been eschewed not long ago, right? And it was back, and it was exciting. It was.
But it was all big.
It was huge, right? Enormous.
It was beautiful.
It was, yeah, for sure. I mean, I loved it.
They were using multiple kinds of materials. I mean, Schnabel was
yeah.
digging plates into his, and there was
That's it.
aspects, and it was very exciting and different, and yet it still felt rebellious, even though it was a turn backwards in some respects, because you're looking back to expressionism from the 20s, from the teens, and also the New York expressionists. There was still something rebellious about it, and which is quite amazing when you think about it. When it was
thinking about you, Mark, being here in Toronto in the 80s, were your friends and colleagues more in those schools, or you know, doing more of the, you know, chromosome figurative?
So I went to York between 74 and 78.
Okay.
So the I guess the iron rule at York was this kind of social justice, you know, Marxist, feminist. But you remember Berger ways of seeing this kind of Marxist analysis of art. Like
I never read it. I know it's a standard to read, but I never read it.
It was the same thing, yes.
Well, no, the simple premise is that art up to a point was property.
Right.
Right. That's all you got to remember. So then the question was, do you want to make property or knickknacks for rich people? And the response of the period, you know, informed by World War II and all that, was no, we don't want to make knickknacks for the rich people.
Right.
We want to figure out something different. So it was a period of real kind of icy cold. It was a bit repressive. It was a bit prissy. But that was forced on artists for at least a decade in Canada. So along come the people you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And it was rebellious, Mark. It was like, fuck you, tell us we can't paint? Watch us.
Yeah. And, you know, of course, it was and the resistance to that late modernism where you had to remove any trace of representation. Yeah. And it was glorious and messy and wild, and punk rock was alive, and experimental music was alive, and theater was experimental.
But the craft thing, that was
point counterpoint.
I met a guy who was doing grad work at York. I was running a health food restaurant, and I'd already gotten my undergrad. And this guy, he was at York to push craft.
Oh, interesting.
This kind of Marxist, the value of labor.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, labor is meaningful. Labor is healing. I mean, he wasn't very popular, which is
in the art department.
Yeah,
like in the art department. Eh?
Yeah, but he meant craft, like not well-crafted paintings. He meant like Mennonite quilts.
Working with your hands and traditional
He had a
craft.
huge influence on me because for me it was like I came from a working class background and I was thinking, well, I've been running a restaurant for 2 years. What am I missing? I'm missing using these things.
Sure. Yeah.
Then tell us, where did you learn to carve like that? I mean, the property is just so well carved.
Well, yeah, I got to give. See, I had a Canada Council grant, and I think Canada Council grants should be given to young artists who are trying to find their way. Because if I didn't have a Canada, I could never have figured out how to carve.
Right. But you would have been busy working.
I would have been busy working. I wouldn't have had the time. I mean, just learning how to sharpen tools is hard.
Yeah.
Even knowing what tools to use.
There's a lot of process to absorb before you can actually even work out ideas.
That's right. And my parents lived out in the country. My neighbors had killed one of our trees. He'd cut through the cambium. He didn't like where the tree was. It was a big walnut. So we took down the walnut tree. So I had the walnut.
No way. So that wood you used was from your family
property.
Amazing.
Yeah, we literally cut that tree down.
Wow. So that brings a whole other level of meaning to that work for you.
Well, it's all about meaning, craft.
Yeah.
It's all that's what it's about.
But it's not like you went into the lumber store and just ordered wood. And did you like cut it yourself and plane it and do everything yourself to
took a chainsaw to it, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. There's something very satisfying about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
very
then
100-mile rule.
the 100 mile for sure. Then sort of after that, there's the Daphne and Apollo, and there's a few other pieces that are figurative, and they're carved, they're constructed. Can you talk about like that period of work, like the installations with figures? The one about the chicken choker too is like, wow, that is so exquisite, so detail oriented and crafted, I guess is the.
Well, see, by then I was in eco-politics.
Okay.
So I went out to UVic. I came back. I was back about a month. And a guy approached me because I was a good organizer. And he said, we want to get this started. And that was a lot of work. And I was a good pick, because I was raised in a kind of a household where that was a priority, going way back to the 60s, early 60s.
Right.
When my dad was a blue-collar mechanic, my mother, she was an administrator, but they moved out to the country, and that was their focus. So the kids, we were raised in this kind of, it's hard to believe now that it's 2020, how long the eco thing has been going on. So anyway, I got tagged to help organize. So it started to bleed into my art very, very fast.
Okay.
So Toronto bank robbery, I was asking myself questions about morality and narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And then Twister, that's actually a pretty complicated piece. But obviously it's about nature and disasters.
Sure.
But it's about other things as well. By the time I got to Chicken Choker, I had a grant to go up to the magnetic pole.
Okay. Wow.
I wanted to see a bunch of things, but what I was most impressed by was kind of how the need to put an airport there had huge impact on what is essentially a very delicate place. And I came back, and that Chicken Choker was a response to that trip.
Okay.
This sense of this kind of like runway rising out of the Arctic desert, and everything that goes in up there stays up there because you can't afford to get it out. So like a toothbrush,
sure.
a piece of floss, and because it's so cold, nothing rots.
Interesting.
So you go just outside of town. There are tule mounds that are 800 years old, and they're still intact.
Wow. Everything, everything is just as it was, right?
Pretty much. The bones are still there. They're not rotten. So anything you take in up there stays there. So if you take in a 40-gallon drum, you take in this, they just bulldoze the rocks over top of it. So it rises like a pyramid up out of the ocean. So I tried to make that work without specifically talking about what I was thinking about. But there's that line in Chicken Choker, high over Resolute.
Yes,
Resolute is actually the name of the town.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Resolute Bay, I think.
Yeah, something like that, right? Is that the old Northwest Territories, isn't it? Or
Yep.
Yeah. I guess that's Iqaluit now, or whatever. Not Iqaluit.
I don't know what it's called now.
Yeah, right. Everything's been renamed.
That's right.
I know.
Yeah, I see new words all the time.
Yeah.
Complex.
In '69, my dad went and worked in Baffin Island.
Helicopter. That's right. You put that picture out.
That's right. Well, that was from up there. Yeah. It's where he got asbestosis, which killed him.
I'm sorry to hear
30 years later. Yeah.
The figure, the horizontal figure, corpse-like figures in Chicken Choker, in the Coffin Project, they have such expressionistic features. And again, I'm going to go back to technique for a moment. How much time did that just come naturally? Did you have those features and the faces already in your mind when you were making those? Did you sketch those out extensively? How did you arrive at those?
I did do
incredibly
sketches.
Powerful. And so
I met these 3 young women down in Cuba on a winter vacation, and they were lawyers. And at the dinner table, they were talking about chicken choking. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I couldn't believe what they were talking about. And they were actually talking about a case where a boy died. So it was this autoerotic asphyxiation.
Right.
okay,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You cut, but the risk is you pass out.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you pass out, your feet go down, and that tightens the cord, and you asphyxiate.
Right. Yeah.
But I thought it was a perfect metaphor for, consumer society.
Absolutely. Right. You push it to that point of,
Yeah.
it's suicidal. It's really.
Yeah.
Right.
But I didn't
pleasure.
want to I didn't want it to turn into a lecture.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be kind of like Ribera, the Spanish painter.
Sure.
He did those figures sort of fleshy. He used peasant models, I think, or something. I wanted to.
Sure. Or even
move
Goya,
that way.
right? Goya.
Yeah.
Amazing political commentary, but they're mysterious, right? Your works are
They're
mysterious.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you use models for those figures?
No, I probably put my hand around my neck.
There's the male figure. It's interesting. The male figure does look like you.
Okay.
No, it does.
It does. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
What do you want? There I am.
Well, the theory is if you're drawing a figure and it's not someone else, it's usually yourself.
Yeah, well, you have to, right?
Yeah. It's the face you look at the most, right? So, yeah.
Well, even now, I've never used. We weren't really encouraged to use models when I was at school. We weren't encouraged to do narrative or figurative work at all.
Right.
So
You didn't do the life drawing.
A little bit, but we weren't encouraged to.
With the body kind of like translucent skin over top. Wow.
Well, it goes Twister, Chicken Choker, Helen, Daphne and Apollo.
Yeah.
Daphne and Apollo is such a difficult piece because it's big, it's heavy. It took me years to carve it. There's no question of exhibiting it. But I got Canada Council support for that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Sure. And that was like a regional gallery or something where that was shown. It was like a regional gallery or a.
Well, by then I was so involved. See, I actually gave up my career in 86. I just felt like by then I was so involved in the whole eco-politics thing.
Right.
And the whole nuclear war thing.
Right.
Art seems sort of
bourgeois.
Frivolous.
Bourgeois.
Well, no, actually, it's worth talking about because artists can be so egotistical.
You're working at something that's really a meaningful employment, ecological work, and social justice, and then art just sometimes seems frivolous and extraneous.
Yeah.
Bourgeois. And I just want to add, I had the similar experience because I worked all my career in social services for 30 years.
I know.
And it would be strange to go from, a group home or my supporting adults in the community and then do art. Like it felt so, sometimes I felt so distant from real life. And in that experience, I went from, before I had that job, I had this idea that, artists were really smart and other people were just dumb because they didn't understand art. When in fact, it just didn't really relate to them.
Yeah.
Well, it's art is something I love. I was glad to get back to it, but it's we've always been kind of weird, sort of parallel to, but not part of.
Yes. Yeah. So you're not, like, I was just going to talk about that in terms of your art career. You worked in other things, so you weren't really part of the scene.
Didn't want to be.
No.
I still don't. I mean, all those years I was on the executive at Loop, I thought Loop was really important. I think art is very important, but one of the things I haven't talked a lot about was, it was, for me, Loop was an experiment in what can we offer ourselves and other people that's not, like shiny cars.
Yeah, it's not a commodity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like it was about artists having co-ownership of a gallery.
Right.
So it was a bit socialistic, wasn't it? Sort of like.
Well, no, but I mean, also just encouraging the whole practice of, people coming to the Q&As and getting artists involved in understanding that, if you want to have a practice, you have to be a business person. It's kind of like those early anarchists in Spain in the 1930s. They paid very close attention to making ends meet. They understood that freedom was something that you had to look after. Tommy Douglas.
Right, for sure.
So
when you say, did you take an actual break from making art then for a few years, or no?
No, I just gave up on the whole pursuing exhibitions.
Yeah, okay.
Which was a bad mistake, but I do it again. You can't really. I mean, I really was working very hard. I burned out. That's why I got out of the eco-politics.
Yeah.
And then when I burned out, I wasn't any good to anybody. And then it took a couple years to think about things, I guess.
Yeah. But your practice, so your art practice was always ongoing. That was still feeding your soul, or whatever, your mind and heart, doing the art.
Yeah.
I took a break from showing for about 3 or 4 years. I just got roped back into it when someone just said, "Hey, let's do a group show together," and that was Gallery 1313.
That's right.
I was involved with before Luke.
Is that how you got back in, Mark? Did you get roped in? Or were you craving a return of some kind?
Well, we started our own collective in the, I guess, mid-90s. Mm-hmm. There were a group of us that thought, well, this is really very simple. If you want things to happen, you make them happen. So we started this other collective called Torontoniensis, and that we actually used that group very well. That was very successful. It didn't feel successful at first, but it's like anything else. If you stick with it, and we did okay in terms of reviews, and we did shows at Harbourfront.
Okay.
But those were the days where you did the crazy ass Rent a Factory.
Right. Purple was it the Purple Institute and places
That's
like
it.
that.
Those were fun days. I mean, I was young enough in those days.
Yeah, for sure.
we did our own publicity. It wasn't so much about getting grants either or sales. It was about the huge fun of getting a bunch of people together and having a show.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are so much doing that now.
Yeah, I really have no idea what goes on in the Toronto art world anymore. I kind of feel out of touch.
I know some youngsters were active in the East End. I think on Carlaw they put together a collective gallery.
There used to be a gallery there called Headphones. I don't think they were collective though. Yeah, I mean, I think there are little pockets of stuff. I just feel a bit disconnected from it, especially living in the East End. You know, Mark and I sometimes we used to go over to the West End and hit the galleries when you could, like Walk Queen and
when there was
Dundas, where there were seems
all together.
That's right.
No idea now.
Yeah,
I think the last time we went to galleries, right, we had to drive because it was at DuPont and I don't know.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Lansdowne or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Kind of industrial wasteland.
Within the junction, south of the junction.
So you're involved with collectives. Were you like one of the founding members of Loop or?
No.
No, okay. You came on a little bit later.
2004.
Okay. I think
Toronto was entering this crisis period where rents were becoming impossible.
Yeah.
Galleries were closing. Galleries were moving further and further away from where you could walk on Queen West.
Yeah.
And then along came COVID. It's easy to forget how many galleries were closing before COVID hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of grateful that Facebook was there. Like for me, Facebook was an incredible stroke of luck because even the Facebook posting format suits the size of my drawings. I don't need to reformat them.
It's amazing.
I was drawing in 4x4s and they wanted 4x4s.
And 100% reproduction on the screen.
Yeah. And I actually found Facebook, for all its faults, like I made contacts, a wider range of contacts than I would have had access to through Loop, because Loop was a walk-in space.
Yeah,
it really is true. I have high praise for social media because I've made a lot of friends and made a lot of connections.
Yeah,
and all but one winging it have been done with Facebook friends. The only exception was John Hartman, who we had to track down through a Facebook friend. Right. Gary Evans helped out with that, but there's so Mark and I have a band together, and every single gig we've gotten playing music has been through Facebook.
I didn't know you guys had a band together.
Yeah, we do experimental electronic music.
And Facebook is not paying us for this free advertisement. Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Full disclosure.
But we are all Facebook users.
Yeah.
Not abusers.
And that's it. It's how I think it's a tool. I immediately disengage if it becomes too, like if someone's abusive or a little bit too conspiracy theory rabbit hole-ish. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of it's, I don't know, like the drawing series is like, they're meant to be accessible, and
yeah.
I mean, I could actually print them out on my Xerox and staple them on telephone poles.
Absolutely.
I could do that.
Yeah. But Facebook is doing it, and people are seeing it around the world, right?
Well, sure. I mean, it's a very limited group of people, but yeah, I mean, they're seeing them.
Well, and then someone like me, I share them. I share them sometimes, and I've got I don't
Yes,
think
you have. Thank you.
1,500 friends. I've got about 800, I think, or 700 artist friends now around the world. So it's a fair community seeing them. I mean, I think you have to work it. Some people think you just go on and you post something and, why don't people like me? You have to share, you have to talk to other people.
The right hashtags on.
Well, you don't do that on Facebook, but definitely on
Instagram.
Instagram.
Or the other is Tumblr.
Tumblr.
Well, what do you guys think? I mean, we were just saying a few minutes ago that before COVID, and if we could just focus on Toronto for a moment, that the galleries were starting to close. There was this, and there was certainly a shift going on of some kind, so not necessarily for the better here in Toronto. What do you think it's going to be like when this thing is finally over? This pall is off our shoulders. Do you think we're going to see a blossoming in terms of local art? I mean, I think there's definitely a hunger, and there's definitely artists who of all walks, right? Not just visual artists, but all kinds of artists want to get out there and want to get their stuff seen and heard. Do you think we're going to see more galleries, more spaces, more opportunity, or are we going to see a variety, or is this just going to be sort of no, back to commercial art? Follow the money. What do you think?
Oh, I think I was talking to a businessman yesterday, a New York business guy, and we were talking about the boarding up of shops all over.
Everywhere, really.
All over.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Like 30 and 50-year businesses.
Sure.
Heartbreaking stories. And he's a business guy, so he was saying, well, the problem is post-COVID, those family businesses, even extended family businesses, they will have lost their capital.
Yeah.
They will not be able to get back in unless there are market corrections.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
I was talking to my brother about it on the phone, and I said, well, it won't stop kids.
That's right.
Kids will go into business because they don't want to starve to death. They'll build a box on the back of a bicycle and sell sandwiches until the health inspector shuts them down.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but they will do it.
Yeah, and when you have, I mean, I used to hang out and work at the Center for Social Innovation, and there's a whole, the millennials and younger, like there really is this real hunger and energy around doing things for themselves and doing businesses in new ways and collaboratively and eco-friendly ways. I do think it's all going to be another brave new world coming up. I think the challenge will be, of course, around rents for galleries and spaces like that. But I mean, I people are getting out of town in droves, right? So
yeah,
the promise is that prices are going to drop, rents are dropping already, so hopefully there'll be a bit of a space there for.
What do you think, Mark? Do you think we'll bounce?
Well, I'm wondering, do you think the millennials are going to take the lead on this from what you guys are saying? I mean, we've been sort of holding them back for so long with high prices, and they've been priced out of existence.
Well, a lot of the new galleries in Toronto are run by like 30-year-olds.
Do you think that the younger generations are going to take the lead in our recovery and in a renaissance, if there is one on the horizon? Or are we heading into an abyss? I don't know. I couldn't say because I don't have enough.
A few people have said they're expecting the Roaring '20s again, right?
I'm sure there'll be a fair bit of decadence because I know we're all sick of just being locked inside all day. So there will be it'll be kind of a big party scene, and pot's legal, so there'll be a lot of that. But in terms of and I'm not even thinking about economic recovery. I'm talking really more about aesthetic recovery, artistic recovery.
Yeah.
Will we see a blossoming of spaces where art can be seen and heard and experienced, But also, I guess my second now question is, do you think the millennials might be the big contributors there? And will they let us in? Will they let
I
the
No, they
know.
old
won't let
guys
us in.
No, no,
Door's shut.
we're the
Let us
dinosaurs.
in. No,
We're the
we kept you
dinosaurs.
out all those years and we held you back, and we're sorry.
Well, I mean, one thing I find interesting is, after the decadence of the 80s and the big sloppy painting is, young people today are really interested in well-crafted art. There's a whole movement of exquisite drawing,
Oh, then there's a lot of room. Then there's a space for Mark and I.
Well, I mean, I do
Charlie,
think
I don't know.
I do think the work that we do. I mean, the hypnagogia drawings and the the drawings that you do, Mark. I do think that they will be appreciated because they do like narrative is in. Hold on, story is in, exquisite drawing is in. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, so Mark, where are you going to be going forward?
Yeah, what's next
now
for you?
and after COVID? Are you going to be looking to exhibit? Are you going to focus on social media as your exhibition space? Are you going to be any thoughts about that, or are you just going with it, just making work right now and not thinking about it?
Well, it's kind of a relief to be sort of 66. Like, I'm so glad I'm not 33.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people that
you don't
like
have to care like they do. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I have the old system, the system where people will buy an object and they'll take it to a framing shop.
Yeah.
And they put it on the wall. And a friend of mine, he passed away, and they wanted one of my drawings for the service. And I was thinking about how little things changed, the way art in the old period was used at moments of ritual.
Yeah.
And it was very nice to be part of a serious ritual, have my art go that way. I still love to go to galleries. I still love objects, and I don't know what will happen. I mean, I've exhibited regularly now for a long time. I don't gain anything in terms of I'm not going to get. I don't think I'm going to attract a new audience. Mm-hmm. Like, if people want to look at my work, it's easy to see. They can Google it.
Well, we're going to work on that with a book, maybe. We'll talk about that.
Well, the book will take me. I'm actually starting the last chapter of the third cycle now.
Okay. Yeah.
So each cycle is many chapters, and I'll finish the last chapter of the third book. The last chapter of the third cycle. I'll probably finish it this month.
I honestly think that's the way to, like, with the younger people, is, you do the books. You can do them actually as Kindle books too, that they can download for $5. You got right. Anyway,
Yeah.
I do that. I when I see your drawings, I think there's a I don't like the word market, but there's an audience for it.
I don't mind the word market.
Yeah. Market and audience. I think they need to be seen.
Thank you. I think they need to be seen too. I mean, people who see them do like them. I mean, it's that thing we were talking about earlier, craft. People respond to craft.
They do. Story, they're funny, they're mysterious.
I think mystery is so huge. I don't think people like being lectured to.
Exactly. I'm with you on that. Yeah.
And there's no reason they should.
No.
Art's not something that it doesn't fit the format. I mean, the lecture format.
It doesn't need to be didactic.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, you beguile someone, they get drawn in, and they start asking questions about what it's
That's it.
about and what's the world about and what are they about, and then
Yeah, it's not dentistry.
it's not dentistry. It's not brain surgery.
But no insult to any brain surgeons or dentists right now.
Well, we should
I'm sure
probably
there's
go.
music-
We've got enough for a good, solid episode.
So that was fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
chatting with you, and we'll keep in touch and keep posting and
Keep safe.
keep
Yeah.
safe.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
All right, guys.
Mark and Mark.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Take care.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.